Does Kanye West speak for the entire black community? Or does Kanye West speak for himself? Recently, Kanye West and Jim Brown went to go have lunch with President Trump. And of course, the cameras were there and the media was there and they were asking questions. And Kanye West was being himself, speaking on his behalf. But now you see all of these videos being made and these recordings being made, these interviews being made about what Kanye West said, as though Kanye West has been appointed or anointed the spokesperson for the entire black community. Whoever said that? I mean, why is it that he couldn't just speak on his own behalf and not on behalf of the entire black community? I mean, this is the reason why I keep saying, stop putting these entertainers and these athletes and a lot of these religious leaders up on TV and other mediums of media to act and speak on the black community's behalf because they're not qualified to do so. And then some people were saying that, well, he should have taken somebody with him. He had the invitation. However, it came about, so it was up to him if he wanted to take somebody or not. Jim Brown went. I mean, I'm sure Jim Brown, if he wanted to take somebody else, he could have done that. So people need to stop with this ridiculing the man, calling him a coon, saying that he embarrassed them, saying he has mental issues. Just about every negative description of a person that someone could think of, that's how they describe Kanye West, which is ridiculous. I mean, he's an individual. He's a musician. And what he says is on him. Now, how that came back to be a representation for their entire black community, or, somebody, I guess, said, well, Kanye was speaking on our behalf. He never said that. Who appointed him? It's crazy to think that way. He went there to have lunch. So whatever he said to President Trump was on him. And stop thinking that somebody, because they're black American, or they look like you, as some people like to say, stop thinking that they're going to think like you. We're all different. We're all individual thinkers. And Kanye West is one that, I don't know if anybody thinks like him, but, that's him. He has a right. He has the freedom to speak. Freedom of speech just like everybody else. He can say whatever he wants. And for some people to keep saying, well, he has mental problems, or he's this, or he's that. I mean, maybe half the United States have mental problems. Who knows? But stop with this, thinking that this one person, or any person for that matter, who goes to speak with the president or have a meeting with the president, stop thinking that they're representing the entire black race. Come on. That's small-minded thinking. If a person goes to, a person of color, a black person in particular, if he goes to speak with President Trump, let it be just he's going to speak with the president. Now, if something comes out of it that's substance, I should say, or that's going to help improve the conditions of black people in America, then great. But if it's just a conversation, just to talk about something, I mean, okay, so what? But don't expect just because a person goes and have lunch or goes to meet with President Trump that something that you want is going to come out of it. Because a lot of people are against black Americans. There are some like to say, which is there's no such thing as an African American. But anyway, some people like to say, well, these African Americans they don't want to meet with President Trump. for whatever reason. You know, you call him a racist, call him bigoted, call him this, call him that, call him whatever. But what do you want to do? You want to sit on the sidelines and throw darts at the man and not at least have a conversation? I remember when that other entertainer, the comedian, was Steve Harvey, went to go meet with him. He was ridiculed. He was by many in the black community. I mean, but he's an individual. I guess maybe he couldn't take the heat, so he just said, well, you know, maybe I should apologize, I guess was what he did, and not go meet with the man again. So, you know, but to have somebody think that they represent the entire black community just because they speak in front of cameras, it doesn't mean anything. And, you know, Kanye, I mean, a lot of people say that he's a genius. And a lot of people say that he went to meet with President Trump because he's trying to keep his name out in the media, and just in case he decides he's going to run for president. And some people said that he was just catering to his fan base. And, you know, sometimes people say, well, he doesn't relate to the black community, which took me back to a time when I was a teenager back in the 60s and 70s, when I used to listen to this particular musician. His name was Jimi Hendrix, the greatest guitarist of all time. Well, back in those days, he was a rock musician, and he played rock music. And the black community, I mean, they really came down on him for playing rock music. They, you know, he was ridiculed. He was talked about. At his concerts, the black community wanted to boycott him because his fan base was predominantly white. And you have to understand, back in those days, I mean, rock music was considered white music. And Hendrix had this band. He had white members in his band. He had a white drummer and a white bass player at the time. But he changed that later on because of pressure from the black community. He changed it. He had a black drummer, Billy Cox, and a black bass player. I'm sorry, a black drummer, Buddy Miles, and black bass player, Billy Cox. And then it was like the black community kind of came around, you know what I mean? But he still was supported mostly by a white fan base. And it was the white fan base that considered him the greatest guitarist of all time because he had a unique sound. He was you know, but he was ridiculed. He was an outcast in the black community. They didn't understand him. And that's kind of like Kanye. And it's not to say that Kanye will ever be considered as the greatest. I mean, I don't know, but you never know. It's a possibility. But they're similar in their attack being black Americans on them, on their style, on the way that they were, and, you know, their fan base. So I think we need to just get out of this habit of appointing or anointing certain people that are not qualified to speak on the entire black communities, or speak for the entire black community. And then you had this other little young rapper, T.I., I think is what the name he goes by, or his rap name, I guess that's what they say. And he attacked Kanye and said what he would have done. I mean, think about this for just a minute. Now, here's a little rapper who he's well known in his music for talking about bitches and hoes, cars, clothes, jewelry, you know, a bunch of ridiculous stuff. And what was he going to talk about to the president? I'm just curious to know, what was he going to say? You know, so you have these people who are not qualified at all to speak on anybody's behalf. Not even their own. But yet they want to come and attack somebody else who's on their same level, which is something I don't quite understand. I mean, this little T.I. guy, I mean, didn't he get arrested for some guns or something? I mean, and now you want him to be able to go in and sit down at the table and talk to some president or some governor or some mayor. What do you think? What do you think he's going to talk about? That's going to really help the black community. We have to stop allowing these unqualified people, and uneducated in some instances, to go and speak on behalf of the black community. It has to stop. Stop with these entertainers and, these athletes and these religious leaders. Get somebody who's qualified, who knows how the political process works. Otherwise, what you're going to have is just somebody who wants to try and shape your thinking, which is what a lot of this talk is about. I mean, the bottom line is that we're talking about a person who is a Democrat who now wants to try and prevent any black person from associating with the Republicans. I mean, it's the bottom line. Let's face it. And then some people will say, well, the conservatives against the liberals, or liberals against the conservatives. But however you look at it, whichever way you want to twist it, that's what it goes back to. And then, like I said before, a lot of the young people, they're beginning to open up their eyes, and they're seeing, and they're saying, what has the Democratic Party done for us in the past 50 years? Have we improved? Have we stayed stagnant? Or have we regressed? Those are three questions that need to be answered. But for some reason, it's like one party wants to blame the other for anything negative. When it comes to something positive or something that America as a whole can say, yeah, this is great, you're going to find one party that's against it. So for people in the black community to think that everybody, especially let's go back to Kanye West, that think that Kanye West should think the way that they do. I mean, it's like you want to suppress his freedom of speech, his freedom to be who he is, his freedom to be unique, simply because he doesn't think the way that you do. He doesn't say what you think he should say. His agenda is different from your agenda. And you think that he should say something that you would think. Not going to happen. Those days are gone. That happened in the older generation, my generation. That's how they thought. That's the reason why they back in those days, you voted Democratic. 95% of the black population voted Democratic. Most were Baptists or consider themselves as Christians. Now things are changing, and I think it's good that things are changing. Whereas you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, as my mother used to say. You're not saying, okay, we're going to vote 90+% Democratic, even though they haven't done much for us, but we're going to still stick with them. Say, well, look, the Republicans are worse. How do you know if you haven't really voted for them? This is the thing that gets me. I mean, you want to condemn the person before the trial? It's just something to really think about. But don't ever expect nowadays for people to think exactly like you or think the way that you do. We're all individuals. We're all unique in our own way. We all think differently, especially when you're talking about a creative person an artist. You know, they have a different way of expressing themselves. So just leave it at that. Kanye West is a different, unique individual. He has a different way of expressing himself, which maybe you can't relate to, maybe a lot of people can't relate to, but there are some who can. And just let it be that and not make so much about it with all of these attacks on the man and all the name calling. It's uncalled for. So just something to think about.